Welcome to our Campfire Conversations episode 4. It is by now. Little introduction of us. I'm Ines, and with me is Yannick. We are from the studio Off the Beaten Track, a northern Germany indie game studio with a focus on narrative games and games that make a difference, as we like to call it. We like to develop games that are fun, but also change something about your worldview or make you think. And with us today is Dagmar from Like Charlie, because we want to try Ghost on the Shore. Dagmar, introduce yourself. What's your role on your studio? Let us know about you and
Yeah.
Like Charlie.
Yeah. I'm the founder, co-founder. There's also Kenny, and I am the narrative designer and writer of our games. So our first game was Marie's Room, and our second game is Ghost on the Shore. Um, and I also do the business management, but that's just because somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, that's what Jens always says when he's with us. He founded the
Mhm.
studio and wanted to make games, and now like 80% of it is business stuff. But
Exactly.
mhm.
Yeah.
And Like Charlie is located in
Belgium.
Belgium. Yeah.
So we we're nomads between Ghent and Bruges, but always Belgium.
Hmm.
And we also make narrative-driven games. Um, our first two games were narrative exploration games, or are, not were. Um, and we are looking, in the future, we would love to do something with more mechanic based, but then, like
Mm-hmm.
that comes first, and then the story is just as important. But now, oftentimes, I first think of the story and then what kind of game can we make with that? But like we want to do it the other way around for our future projects.
That's super interesting also to explore both sides of it, and then you
Exactly.
can judge which approach worked better for you,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
also which one sold better, because that's also always something we have to think of,
Yeah.
I guess. Hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
with Marie's Room, our first game, it was I mean, Kenny started making that room before it was even a game. So that was their first, and then he asked me to join him and craft a story for it and characters. So I did it with I mean, I had a given the room. He had already made something, so Marie came out of that room, um and that was different, like
mhm.
Ghost on the Shore started from scratch with the story, but Marie's Room, that started with the art, and then now we think maybe we should start with gameplay and see where that takes us.
Oh, that's really cool. First art, then the story, then the gameplay, and
Yeah.
then some point you're gonna do a game with the music first. First some music, and then let's see what game turns
With
out to
what?
be. Music, maybe. Or sound.
Music.
Sound first.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
We have an idea. It's still a character, but the character is a jazz musician. So
Hmm. Ah,
it's
okay.
yeah, that's another idea. Um,
I'm, a- I also think it's really interesting as a creative tool if someone else does art and you get to take the art and just have your own interpretation of whatever that person did art-wise, and I think that's really cool and sort of a weird, crazy collaboration.
yeah, exactly. And that was really fun, because the room was there, and I, I I just created Marie's Room with the testimony of the room. But then Kelsey, the character, the player character, that's somebody that I completely came up with, and she's from the outside world, and she comes into that room. Um, and that for Kenny, then for the art team, was the first response was like, oh,
Hmm.
what is she doing in this room? And that's just so much fun that you get art and story and you get them to work together, but you also like have them collide and then see what sort of mini explosion happens.
Hmm.
um yeah, I
Mini
enjoy, I
explosion.
enjoy that very much. Yeah.
About Ghost on the Shore, how many people were working on that like, in total?
Yeah, in total they weren't
Yeah,
all on that.
on the production team, I guess. So
Yeah.
you're also published by Application System Heidelberg, so that's the other thing, but like who worked on the game itself?
Yeah. um the team that really worked on the game. I mean, we didn't have everybody on board for the full development time, which was about 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because we also started out just me and Kenny as freelancers, working part-time on it. And then quickly realized that, you cannot make a game if your artist only works 1 day a week. That's impossible. So we needed to make some changes. And that's why it took 3.5 years. Because if we would have had a full-time team from the beginning, it would have been like half of that.
That's total luxury, though, right? To have an in the studio with a complete team from the beginning. So get that.
Yeah. So there was me for story, Kenny for art. Kenny has had two 3D artists, not at the same time, Kat and Eileen. Then there was our programmer lead, Alex, and we had another programmer who kind of took over because Alex didn't have enough time. And he was also our sound designer. And then a second sound designer, and then our game designer, gameplay. And he was kind of project management, but then we passed that on to Kenny. See, like, it's not like clear-cut roles. Like, in total, there were like 8 people that worked on it. And if I count Christy and George, who are our marketing team, I would say, yeah. So 8 in development and 2 for marketing and promotion.
That's a good size,
quite a
though, I
lot.
think. Yeah, 8 people is good, though, I think.
Yeah.
So, since we want to show a bit of gameplay, of course, on the show, how about you give us a little introduction to the game, or like a pitch or something, just a little idea of what the game is about and what we're
What
gonna
it is about.
take a look at.
The game is about leaving everything behind that because and having the courage to do that, because that is what you're used to, but it does not make you happy. It is not your home. It's not where you belong, and you have the guts and the courage to just go. And that's what our lead character does, Riley. And she doesn't allow herself to think about it a lot, because otherwise she might not do it. So she just gets a boat and sails away. And we meet her right at the beginning of a storm. She gets into a storm and she doesn't know what she's in for. I mean, she's not qualified to sail a boat in a storm. And then she starts hearing a voice. And that voice turns out to be... Should I say who that is, or should I just let you play the opening?
I mean, I guess we're gonna experience that, right? Yeah, because
so
we're gonna play the
yeah.
beginning of the game.
Yeah. So yeah, something happens on that boat in the storm. And then she's gonna go on an exploration and then sort of investigation of a group of islands.
Yeah, so an exploration, first-person 3D narrative adventure, if we want to put all the tags on it, right?
Yes.
I guess.
Bingo, well
The
done.
full summary. Yeah, I gotta say though, I think I actually played the first sequence already because we tried Ghost in the Shell during last year's Gamescom. We tried some of the other narrative games that we found that had demos on stream, so I tried that then, and I'm very happy to have the full version now, because we should also mention that Ghost in the Shell has been out since February, so it is out, the full version is there. There's also still a demo on Steam, so if anyone wants to try it, head there and give it a shot. And with that, I think I'll start the game. I hope my PC handles everything well. We're gonna show a trailer. I think is it the release trailer? It's one from 7 months ago, so I guess that might be it. Let's do that. Just 1 second. And I'll also stream it to YouTube just so you know what I'm seeing. There we go.
Oh god, this is a bad idea.
Yes, it was. Terrible idea.
What? Anybody there?
You can hear me.
You need to leave.
I can't.
I think I like it here. These islands hold so many stories. I want to know them all. I want to know yours.
Mhm. Thank you.
I'm going crazy, aren't I?
You're not crazy, Riley.
Why are you here?
I love you, kid. You're gonna have to be strong without me.
Lord knows you need someone to take care of you.
I don't know if I can trust you. Because you lie.
I don't lie.
Get away from me!
I'm your mother. You do as I say.
Miss Nora, I'm so sorry.
Come back to me.
What did you do?
I didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's already on there.
Oh.
Oh.
That's not ours.
No, but I already closed it on stream because it
Oh.
it just directly went to the next one. Yeah. But I think this really shows off how beautiful the game is. So beautiful that made my PC crash. But I already saw that when I played it last year on tried the demo last year. It's the narrative was one thing really, or exploring the dialogues was the one thing that made it special. Also because, and I think we could talk about that a little more as well, about the decisions that you make during the dialogues. But I think art is often a thing that's like the first thing that captures you about a game. When you go in there, the first thing you see is not the narrative and how it plays out. It's just yeah, the art. And in this one, you get to explore an island, or it said in the trailer multiple islands even. And definitely that was the experience I had with it, that it's very, very dreamy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 islands, and they're not magical in the literal sense, like there's no magic, but they are mesmerizing, and there's something about the islands. It didn't start out like that, but along the way, we started to see the islands as an entity of itself, like a character. Like it was the islands that wanted to share the story. They wanted the player, they wanted Riley, the character, to know what really happened there. So they're literally leading you. Yeah, they want to get rid of the ghost as well. Almost, they're like, and they it's like the islands have been holding their breath for Riley to come along and then finally just tell you what really happened there.
And when you say that you saw of them as individual characters, do they also have like very distinctive characteristics, those 3 islands?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so together they are the Rogue Islands. And even though I thought it sounded a bit too Star Wars at first, I did feel like
That's true.
yeah, it did give them the character of standing out, of being contrary, or of being something different. So together, there's the big rogue, there's little rogue, and then there's the dark rogue, and that's like literally the big rogue is the biggest one, where everybody lives, where the most communities are, houses, the church, the community center. That's where life happened. And then you had little rogue, which is almost like a private estate of one rich family who owns all the islands. And then the third one is that's where the more tragic things happen, and where the dark stuff happened.
And I guess now we can also say it, because we didn't want to say it before, but now since we can play it, there's actually like a ghost, right? That's leading Riley. That's motivating her to explore the islands, I guess.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, he's been hanging around there for so long that he's even forgotten what it's like to be an entity, to be somebody, to be a person. And so when because nobody can hear him, like he's invisible, nobody can hear him, like a real ghost. And
Mhm.
until Riley arrives and she can hear him, so that sets him on edge and makes him feel like, like he's alive again. Like,
Mhm.
it makes him wonder about the things, and it makes him remember. I used to say that it was kind of like the original little the mermaid tale
Mhm.
from the fairy tale. In the original one, the mermaid turns into foam on the
Yeah.
waves of the ocean, and that's how I saw him. Like he was about to turn into foam, and just before that happened, she arrived, and he's like, "Oh, I have memories. I'm a person I used to have a life," and so he's very excited about that. She's a little less excited. She just wants to go on her adventure. Um, but she also realizes like there's no way to get him because he's like stuck in her head. It's like a voice is hearing the whole time, and if she doesn't want to go mad, she needs to get him out, and the only way to do that is she believes is to solve his mystery and make him just leave.
Mhm.
So she humors him and goes, they start out together on this big quest, and then as a player deciding in your choice of answers, like which we wanted the player to be very organic, like you don't think about which answer you're going to pick thinking about what the result might be, or think, is this the right answer, is this a wrong answer? No, there's no right or wrong. You
Mhm.
just really act very intuitively, and it all depends on how you feel about somebody popping into your head and keep, there's players that want him to shut up, there's players that fall in love with him. So we wanted to present those opportunities, those different traces. You choose what your relationship with a ghost will be.
Mhm.
And it's not one time that you choose like, okay, I'm going to like him, I'm going to love him, I'm going to hate him. It's more like in the way that you behave towards them, in the things that you say to him, if you're considerate or if you're mean or you're impatient or you're sensitive or cruel, whatever. All of that has an influence on your relationship with him, and that ultimately influences your experience as a player, but also very concrete leads to 4 different endings.
Mhm. I also noticed when I played the demo that the answers aren't like yes, no answers or something like that, or the dialogue options, I mean. Um, it's really more the tone of it, I guess.
Mhm.
So, we all know games where it's very clear, like this is the neutral answer, this is the positive answer, and this is the bad answer or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's definitely not the case here. It feels more, yeah, like
Yeah.
organic or real choices in dialogues, like the real choices you have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that was really hard because sometimes you're writing, and at least when I write, I can hear the voices of actors or my characters, and but as a player, you want to make the choice. You don't hear the intonation of it yet, so you have to make sure that the
Mhm.
thing that's written in a short answer really synthesizes what the answer is going to be, because you don't want your player to feel cheated. He picks an answer that he thinks is going to be a great sarcasm, for example. You cannot use sarcasm in your short answer because they're going to read it quite literally, unless sometimes you put an extra word in there, um, like the swear word. I don't know if I can swear on this stream, so I'm
Yeah,
going
you
to.
can. You
Okay.
can.
People keep telling me I swear too much. So, so I mean, if the answer says "I like you," I could say that sarcastically. But you don't know that.
Mhm.
But if I say, "I like you, asshole," then you
Mhm.
do, you know?
Mhm.
And sometimes I would just then say the opposite, like, "I don't like you," but then have the actor or the line be in a positive sense with the sarcasm. And that was a long road, a long bumpy road in the beginning, because, I would write it and it would feel great to me. And then we had our team played and they were like, Dagmar, this really jars. This is weird. This is not what I was expecting. And that would drive me mad sometimes. I was like, oh God, just play the game. But it made me, like iterate over and over again until we found that right tone. And that we knew which tools or which sentence constructions or which tone in the written answers worked and were representative of the tone in the audio.
That's super interesting. Something as a non-writer I never thought about before. I don't know, Yannick, you're writing a little bit for your own game. So I don't know if that's maybe something
Not too much though.
that you've thought about before, but yeah, how do you express the intonation in the written sentence before you can actually hear it? And we all know that in games, like point and click games or something, where there are multiple dialogue options and you choose between one of them, and then it has like a total different intonation than you expected it. And you're like, I didn't even want to choose this answer because
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. That's what we were trying to avoid. Yeah.
I also, it's really interesting to hear you just talking about the character, because I can really feel that you have a deep connection to them, or you have a whole imagination of what they are like. And it's super interesting that you use the Little Mermaid as an analogy, because in the fairy tale, she finds peace in the end, right? And then she turns into foam.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's very interesting that you use that as an analogy for your character, because like he's trying to find peace, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you can't.
And that's something that is even forgotten until she
Mhm.
gets there. You know,
Mhm.
after the first excitement, "Ooh, I get to talk to you. You can hear me, and I'm just gonna keep chatting until you." And she just wants him to shut up. Like, even if you like him, like, "You just shut up. It's my head." And then they start to realize that, yeah, it's that peace that he's looking for.
Mhm.
And there's, I mean, even though the path it's linear, there are different ways of finding that peace.
Mhm.
That is something that I mean, we all found very important, is that, and that we wanted to be careful about, is that even though you have 4 different endings, we wanted them to be very different, not just a different shade of gray. No, it had to be something completely different. But yet at the same time, you also want your player to feel a sense of completion, of satisfaction, of having reached a goal. You don't want them to have played your game for 2-3 hours and then just get the bad ending.
Mhm.
So that feeling of accomplishment, that's what I was looking for, is in all 4 endings. And we did that through, no matter what ending you get, Josh will find his peace.
Mhm.
But there's other big things that can go very, very wrong.
I
Yeah, I'm
mean,
wondering.
no, you first.
No, I was wondering about the different endings, because in most cases, whenever you have multiple endings, it is very clear one of these endings is supposed to be the main ending or the canonical one, and the other ones are maybe just different realities. So, from what I'm hearing, you try to make all 4 of them kind of equal.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not one ending that's the ending or a better ending, or and that's something that I found very important. It wasn't that easy, but I feel it worked. Is that you want, when you start out on your linear path, and you want that story to build up to all of those 4 endings. You cannot have the feeling that you get to a certain point and then poof, you make a
Yeah.
quick choice in the end. No, it needs to build up to that. And I want to talk about this, but I don't know how much I can spoil for you guys also.
I mean, however much you want.
I would be very interested. I can say that
Okay,
much.
I'm just gonna tell you what the endings are.
I mean,
I'm fine with that.
and we're gonna upload a
fine.
VOD and make a like spoiler warning
Yeah,
at this
okay.
minute, so
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah. It's just because I find it interesting to talk about it. So yeah, you give your choices in your dialogues, and they influence the relationship. And we have 3 variations. We had 5 at the start, but it was just too much work. So we reduced it to 3. So you have like the middle one, where you like him, just to, like I used to say, like, they're like 2 cops in a car doing an investigation, but now they're inside somebody's head, and they get along. It's fine. And then you have the one where they fall in love, and then you have the one where they hate each other's guts. but you build up to that. And that, that just, if she discovers something about him, if she's in love with him, she feels betrayed, and that hurts. Like, she trusted him and he's lied to her. But when he's in the dislike branch, we called it, that confirms her suspicions. Like, see, I knew it. You are an asshole. You weren't. And you want those conflicts to be equal in all three branches, and they should lead up to those 4 different endings. That was not so easy, but I think we pull it off. And then to avoid that, you are like in the dislike branch, and then you can, as of a certain point, you cannot go to the like. You may drop to the like branch, but you can't go to the love branch anymore, because that would just disrupt it too much. It's just hopping between those branches, then you get a very inconsistent character. So the way that you've answered and in which branch you've ended up, like dislike, neutral, and like, that's what we call it. You are left, yes, with 2 choices, 2 different endings. There is one major event that has, aside from the dialogue, has a major impact on your relationship, but it's very clear in the game what that is. So at a certain point, he wants you to take your boat before the tide, pulls back and you're stranded. And if you listen to him, that's good for your relationship. If you're being a wise ass and you want to do it your own way and you think you know better, then that is, has an effect on your relationship, and you start arguing. So after that, you are left with 2 endings. And at one point, after a big reveal, Riley gets so upset that she doesn't want to talk to him anymore. But through that conflict, she remembers something major and big. And that sets off a trigger. Like, she remembers everything that happened before. I'm just going to say it. Otherwise, I'm just talking too abstractly, right?
It's really fun how you're just spoiling more and more. But that's fine.
Well, maybe this is something for the game designer, not for the player. I don't know. Right? So the thing is that it's not the first time that she's on these islands. She's the first time as Riley, but she's been back as 3 other characters before. So like reincarnation thing. And she's met Josh a couple of times before. Like, he's been on the island for 200 years, and there have been like 4 characters that could hear him, and it was always her. It's always her that's being lured back to the islands. And she starts to remember that. And she's really upset with him, but he wants her to remember what really happened, because that was a whole thing. Like, the very first time that they were together, Josh and Riley, 200 years ago, there was a major big understanding. I will leave some of the secrets. Where that the girl felt abandoned by him, but he never did. So that's why he's stuck, because it's unresolved for him. She believed him to be somebody that he's not. And it's in this game, in this final experience, her final return to the islands, that he wants her. He's kind of losing his patience too. He's like, I want you to remember, and I want you to know what really happened. I did not leave. But in the heat of the moment, there's a fight in the ocean, and you can drown. The lead character can drown. So if you don't say the right things to your ghost, you die. So
now I'm afraid of playing the game myself.
It's not a scary death. It's emotional, though. Yeah, it is emotional. But it doesn't mean that the game ends there. Like, that has just... I mean, you're near the end, of course, but it does have implications. It's not like game over, start over, It's,
so you're gonna be there a 5th time.
Oh. But you see, that we wanted it to be big enough so that when you get to the ending and you're like, oh my God, what happened? And somebody else like, no, that didn't happen for me. That you realize that it's a total different experience, yet the core of it, the heart of it is the same. It's about Josh and Nora and their story. But how you get to that is up to the player.
It sounds also super interesting so to me it sounds like first you might be frustrated with that ghost because it appears and it's annoying and you don't really want another voice in your head that tells you what to do or whatever. But
It's the best character duo dynamic for me. I love, oh, I'm
Mhm.
stuck with this idiot. I love that.
But then in the end, it's not necessarily him that is the idiot, but it's you because you're the one that doesn't remember, and in the end, you understand his frustration with you because he has to make you remember it. He has been stuck there for so long and basically talking to you over and over again, and yeah, trying to get you to do the right thing. So it sounds like it's not just about your relation with the ghost, but it's also about your relation to your own player character, I guess, because you're
Yeah.
going to find out so much about yourself or about Riley or whatever
Yeah.
other names she had, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And
It's very awkward. Yeah.
like managing all these different branches of dialogues. How did
Oh,
you do
yeah.
that? How did you end up being not super confused? Did you have like a large whiteboard and everything spread out, or how did you organize that?
At first, yeah. I like to do the post-it, the allee, analog kind of way, just post-its and writing and but in the end, funnily enough, like once you get and then Excel sheets, of course, Excel sheets. And yeah, we did some like Miro boards kind of things as well, like charts. But it was very hard for me. See, that was the hardest part. Like, as I was also doing the business management and this writing, I felt like I didn't have enough time to do it as in depth or as well as I would want to. So I felt frustrated quite a lot because I didn't have time to research my method, like what works best to keep, track of all these branches. I just had to do it. Everybody was waiting. They needed my stuff. So in the end, it turned out to be a lot of Excel sheets. And then once you get writing the dialogues, it was like it was really weird actually because I told Kenny that like this is so weird that I had like a blueprint in my head of it and I didn't need to go look at everything. I knew exactly which dialogue came after which dialogue and where I could build on the other dialogue. So I didn't need to keep track of it constantly. That is also a luxury because it's just me. Because if I would have 2-3 other writers, I would have to do it because otherwise they wouldn't know what the hell I was writing or what I was talking about. So because it was all in my head and it just needed to come out, that was a frustration because there was nobody to help me. But it was also a luxury because it was just me.
But and so you yourself did not get confused, right? Did I understand that right?
I did a lot in the beginning. Yeah, like, and then we would have these and then especially the first meetings when I wasn't used to writing I did a little bit of code in the dialogue, like Lua code, and I had never done that before. And when my programmer said I would have to, I was like, but no, I don't want to. I just wanted to write the characters and think about, their arcs and their emotions and their feelings. But that actually really helped me because I didn't have to ask anybody to add any code for me. I knew exactly what dialogue gave you what information or what object or what knowledge that I could use in other dialogues. So that actually was not an obstacle. It was very helpful. But it was very frustrating in the beginning because I came from I had an education in film, writing screenplays. And I remember that I used to dream about beginning, middle, and ending, like just simple linear story. But in the end, it worked out. Yeah, I think what I found harder was the VO acting afterwards. because I still find, in all honesty, that sometimes there's like inconsistencies in VO. Like I feel like, oh, she says that way too harsh because she likes this guy. But that was a lot harder. So for next time, I think we would have to look into that workflow to keep better track of intonations in different branches.
For the story, you said that basically you work like from scratch, and you had the story and the game came from it. But where did you pull your inspiration from? Were there like any real life stories or books, or like where did you get the
Yeah.
idea from?
Well, in general, I get a lot of my inspiration from everywhere. I mean, it goes from books to cult movies to bad teen series. You know, it comes from everywhere. But this one specifically was a dream I'd had. In that dream, I had died, and I was a ghost in my own home. That was even before we had children. And my boyfriend partner, he couldn't see me, didn't know I was there, and he was grieving, and there was nothing I could do. I couldn't touch him, I couldn't comfort him, and that hurt because he was so close, but yet I couldn't reach him. But then it got worse because then they get over it and they start to move on, you know, and they start to forget about you. And then I felt myself like disintegrate somehow. And that was a dream. When I woke up, I was like, oh God, I was like hungover from that. So that dream stuck with me for a long time. And then I saw this trailer to this movie called Jamie Marks is Dead. And the tagline for that trailer was, how far would you go to be remembered? And I thought that, still feel that's a very strong emotion because we all want to be seen. We all want to be liked, approved, part of something. Nobody wants to be invisible. Well, sometimes being invisible is useful, but you know, in general, we just want to be liked and be seen. And I felt like, as a ghost, what could you do to get those people in the real world, in the live world? What would you do to make them see you again, to make them remember you and understand you? And that was my idea. And then I built it around, what if you could come back? You know, what if somebody came back? What would that be like, and how could you? So that's how I pitched it to Kenny, and then he was sold on the reincarnation thing, on the love across the back. You know,
It's also super cool that he like agreed that it's a good idea or a good story.
Yeah.
Because we all know how it is sometimes to talk to others about your dreams.
But I mean,
Yeah,
if that was the pitch, starting with "I had a dream," I would have been in. I would have been in.
Yeah. But sometimes it's like, oh, I had a dream last night, and then you go on with all the crazy stuff that happened, and no one really cares because it didn't really happen. But it's really cool that you convinced them and that a game came from it. And it's also, I think, interesting just for me to have this as a contrast. So our last guests for the last stream were the developers of Inua, A Story in Ice and Time. And that one is based very much on real life things, and they had like thousands of pages of source material, of historical stuff, and so on. And this is like such a stark contrast that it's basically fully from your own imagination or your own experiences.
But the research came after. There's been tons of research. We did kind of make it ourselves a little easier because it's in sort of like alternative universe. We very specifically don't use any specific geography. Even like in the design of the houses, we looked to the architecture in Scotland, in England, in Norway, in Iceland, and it has a bit of all of that. Also, why we used as well American English and British English, like a mix. and yet it's not random. Like the American English is also, it's for the crown family, like the people that moved into the islands, and everybody who originates from the islands speaks British English, because we did feel we wanted some sort of consistency. But we wanted to be non-specific. So in time also, everything is inspired by our real life experience, the First World War, the Second World War, but we don't call it that because we didn't want to open the can of worms where like, oh, did this really happen? Oh, that happened actually 2 years. It's not about that. It's about the emotional, it's about the universal feeling of loving somebody so hard, so desperately, and then being seen as a traitor, and you're not. It's just so unfair, and you want to defend yourself, and you want people to see you for who you really are. And and you cannot find peace until that person that you loved so much sees you for who you really are, and not as that traitor that you're not.
So yeah, it's based on real life emotions instead of real
Yes.
life
Yeah.
happenings or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful synthesis. I ramble.
One thing that I also noticed when I played the demo is that the game features a lot of environmental storytelling. So there's often like stuff lying around that tells you a bit more about the lives of the people that were there beforehand. How did you go about those? Did you kind of script those environmental storytelling things, or was it more the art team, or how was the cooperation of these things that are not
Yeah.
not dialogue yet tell you so much about the lives of the inhabitants?
No, it's collaboration because it starts with story. For this game, it starts with story. Like a village, for example, I will have had 4-6 characters developed, and that sometimes goes from, we know that that's where the milkmaid lives, and her name is Patricia, and this is what happened in her life. We don't tell it, but we know who she is. And we did that for a couple of characters, so that when Kenny and his art team then get to work, they know what they're gonna make. And usually, I'm a very visual person, so I like to work with mood boards. I find a lot of inspiration in the real world, or just in visuals. So I start making my own mood boards in which I play out the events of the story for myself. And Kenny has access to that, and then he does his thing. But then we're like, it's there's a connection between the two, but I then let the art team do their thing, and they will always ask me like, okay, does this still make sense? Is this still okay? Or if they have an idea to do, they want to. I know this is a silly example, but if I wanted the character to have a backpack and they're making like a satchel, they will always check in like, does that make sense? Also because maybe someplace else in the game, in the story, a satchel may not make sense anymore. So I think it's very important when you're making a game like this that is so heavily narrative based, that your art team constantly checks in with. What doesn't that doesn't need? I mean, that doesn't mean to say that it's all about narrative. A lot of the times, I changed or adapted the narrative to the game design needs, because the gameplay seems very simple, but there's been a lot of work and a lot of effort to make it very streamlined and seem very organic. So yeah, I adjusted things as well in function of art or gameplay. And I liked that a lot because we're such a small team that there was a lot of room for that.
Yeah, I think that's also something that you really have to get better with over time. Like we see that in our studio as well, that there's so much communication between designers, project lead, and the artists, because the designers have to communicate very well what they want, and then art always has to check back and change little stuff. And if at some point we're all perfect and it works in the first try, then I don't know. I think at that point there's no humanity anymore. But that's a very good team building exercise, I guess. That communication point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I was, as a writer, I was very fortunate to be part of that team where there is such space, room for narrative.
That's the good thing about small indie studios, I guess, that we have the very small, short paths to communicating with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yannick, do
So
you have?
everything is
I'm
very
still amazed
sorry.
by the dream question.
Yeah.
Sorry. My mind is still going about that.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
think for me that was the reason that I think I could write Josh, because for me as a writer, like inspiration comes from everywhere, but usually it can start with a room, like in Marie's room, and it can start with gameplay, and it can even just start with a story, like we want to do something about mermaids, fine, but then I need to find the characters, and then I want to get under their skin, and I want to feel what they're feeling, and because otherwise I don't feel like I, as a writer, this type of writer, cannot write genuine dialogue or story that is organic, that's where you don't feel like, oh, now the writer is trying to be a puppet master. I want it to be real. So I spend a lot of time with my characters, and I see that dream that I had more as a way into Josh than as the story that we made. It was just that little spark that I needed to get going.
Mhm. So one question that I always like to ask, and we see whether you have an answer or not, but because I'm the marketing and community person, like your game has been out for a few months, and I'm always interested whether there was like one thing that you did that you noticed people really, really liked or really looked up to. Like, was there one specific image or one specific GIF or video that you shared, or was there something where you really noticed, okay, that's what people like, that's what they want to see about a game?
I thought you were going to ask that we could see in sales numbers, and I was going to answer like release, like that's what they like best with the highest numbers. But no, to social media, aside from the Steam announcement and the release trailer, stuff like that.
We all know the best marketing is releasing a game.
Yeah. There's one post, and we still don't know why, but it like instantly, where our 3D artist Eline, it was the first house that she made. It was a redesign of something from the very first demo that she did, and that it was like, I think somewhere last fall. We didn't have a community manager back then, so we were taking turns each week doing the Twitter feed. And she just posted something that she'd made, and instantly we had like more than 100 likes, and usually we have like 20. And we were like, what? Why? And we still don't understand. We still don't know why. Because your second post didn't work anymore, and we tried similar things, but still didn't work. So we don't know.
When you noticed that post gained traction, did you think, maybe these houses, maybe these islands do need more houses, or did that influence the game at all?
We need more
not at
houses.
that stage. Not at that stage. Because the houses, for example, there's a lot of houses that in certain villages resemble each other, or that are so worn down that they resemble each other, and that was just purely production value thing. Like, that we only had so much budget, we only had many people on board, so
no additional houses.
Yeah, no additional houses. We would have liked to a lot, because yes, the original house, 'cause it's the house of Terrence, and he used to be a baker that lived there, and the original house was, I want to say bland, but that's very disrespectful. It looks like the other houses. It's just very standard. And we took the time to redesign it. Elin did, and it looks very much like a baker house now. And I think, yeah, that works. But so yes, I think people like that. We also think that maybe it's because of our artist, because she was part of the team at that point. I don't know.
No, but it's very interesting to hear from you that you have no idea why it worked, because I feel like that's often the thing in social media. Somehow you have to be at the right place at the right time.
I know.
And post the right
posts
thing
that we think are just random, they work, and then posts we think, oh, this is going to be awesome, and nothing happens. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Very
It's
cool.
a mystery. Yeah.
See that you still haven't decided it. But it's also a really cool idea to say that, well, we don't have a community manager yet, so we'll just take turns with this. And
Yeah, yeah,
I think at some point I want to like pressure our team to do that too, just so the
I
people
like that approach.
get out
Yeah.
of their
yeah.
shell.
I
That was
remember
really
for
fun, actually. Sorry, I keep
no.
interrupting you. Because we also said like whoever posts, put your name in the post, and that really worked because then you feel that you really have the voice of your studio
Yeah.
and not an agency behind it that does it.
Yeah, I love that approach. Mostly because it reminds me of the past 2 years where Ines keeps like knocking at our doors, being like, "Do you have something for me to post? Can I have something? Anything?" And she always has to go out and get stuff, and is frustrated when you don't have anything. Yeah, so I think it would be pretty cool to just rotate and
Yeah.
show off whatever we have, so she doesn't have to
Let's
have all
do
the
that at
things
some time. And at some
Yeah.
point, when we had a first prototype of our game, the Cost of Recovery, and had one area ready, I was just like in there for weeks taking videos of all the different areas. It was very much like, if you give me something, just give me something, and then I do some posts out of that.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, but unless Yannick, you have another question, I think we'll wrap it up for today.
I feel like Dagmar's been faster answering my questions before I can even get before I can even get them out. So I don't have any questions left. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I talk a lot.
No,
don't
it's
be sorry.
great. It's great.
It's great listening to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially
you.
since you were the first writer, if I'm not mistaken. I think you're the first writer that we have on our stream, so it's very interesting to really have that side. Although no, Florent that we had last time was also a writer for Inua, but then to see those super different approaches of fictional versus historical. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us today. Sorry that we couldn't really try Ghost on the Shore, but I'll link it once more in the stream. And on the Steam page, there's also a demo. So if anyone wants to go out and try Ghost on the Shore after hearing all this and ignoring the spoilers,
even after the spoilers, I kind of want to play it even more.
That's to be honest, the spoilers made me want to play it more. So that worked. I mean, it's always the thing with narrative games, right? Like, how much can you say? You don't want to say too much because then people are spoiled, but you don't want to say too little because you have to keep them interested. But
maybe that just changes the narrative of the genre because it's more of a kind of movie where you know something bad is going to happen, but it's more about finding out how it's going to happen and being like, does it happen now? I don't know.
Maybe we should have used that in our campaign. I used to say that to our publisher too. Like, the fact that you can actually die, I think that's a lot of people don't get there. They don't know. They also don't know about the incarnation, and that's like the whole hook of the thing. But it only happens like in the final third of it. So maybe we should have said something more about it. Yeah.
But people are very different about that. I have friends that absolutely don't want spoilers like that. And to me, it works very well to find out a bit more about what's going to happen later on. And then I want to see how I get there. So,
especially if you tell me you will die later in this game, then I would just be starting to ask questions like, how does it go on? What happens?
And then you're going to be disappointed when you don't die.
So now we're going to play it and I'm going to be like, oh my God, I don't want to die. I'm trying to do everything right. And Yannick is the opposite. But just mentioning again, we said it before the stream actually, Dagmar and also me and our founder Jens are going to be at Adventure X in London in November, and Ghost on the Shore is also going to be there, so you can try the demo there if you are at Adventure X, and also you can meet us there if you are there, so let us know if anyone's interested in meeting up at Adventure X and having a chat.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, very much. Also, just to being in London, that's also great. And I linked Ghost on the Shore in the chat. Also, if you look into the info, you can find our Off the Beaten Track Discord if you want to comment on our stream, let us know anything we could have done better, tell us anything good that we did good, or if you have any good inspiration on who we should invite to these Campfire conversations, you can go to our Discord. Our Twitter is also linked there. We're also always announcing our streams there, so follow us if you don't want to miss anything. And we also linked our newsletter there. It's called the Narrative Outlook, and it's a newsletter that comes once a month with a focus on narrative games, always telling a bit about which games are coming up, which events for narrative gamers are coming up, and so on. So if you are into narrative games, you should have a look at it and maybe subscribe to it. And with that, thank you, Dagmar, very much for being here today.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
goodbye.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye bye.